Welcome back with another banger. It's the React Files. Hope you're having a good night. If you haven't already, please take a second just to smash that like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, just to make sure the algorithm knows what's up. So let's get straight to it.
There's no such thing as other planets or outer space. I believe the planets are actually just fallen angel beings, and I'm about to show you. So we know, according to scripture, stars are angels, angels are stars. We know that we all live under God's firmament. There's no such thing as outer space. So all the stars or angels are inside the firmament. Right? According to Revelation, the 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, right? So we know stars are angels. Right? We know 1/3 of the stars of heaven, or the angels, fell, right? They disobeyed God. These are known as the fallen, right? Now the book of Ezekiel gives us a description of what some of these angels look like. As for their appearances, they four had one likeness, as if a wheel had been in the midst of a wheel. So a wheel inside of a wheel. This is a picture of Mars captured by the Nikon P1000 camera. What do you see? A wheel inside of a wheel. Now you can go find a bunch of Greek and Roman gods that actually have the same names as the planets. They were named after them. Because they're not actually planets, the false gods are really just fallen angels in disguise. This stuff is no joke, you can go look it up. Why do you think they had us building these solar system projects in school, trying to get us to memorize all these names? We were giving false idolization to these false gods. Right, and they gave us hints, right? Some of them actually do look like wheels inside of wheels, but this is fake. It's not what they actually look like. These are the true photos of what these so-called planets actually look like. They're all wheels inside of wheels. These are the fake ones. Now these are some pictures of stars as well that have the same exact appearance. Just normal stars. Alright, so what God has ordained for these angels is to move in this circuit type fashion around the earth, right? Right, so if there was certain of these stars or these angels not moving in this circuit, they'd basically be disobeying him, right? Which is what the planets are, wandering stars. I believe they are part of the fallen, which is why they are connected to all these Roman and Greek false gods. I believe he gave us a hint at this in the book of Jude. Raging waves of the sea, foaming out of their own shame. Wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. Why are these wandering stars or these wandering angels so shameful? Probably because they disobeyed him. If y'all want more about this, it's in my True Earth book, in my profile. Go download. Let me know what you guys think about this one. Don't forget to like and follow to stay tapped in with the truth, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, could you imagine a whole planet being a fallen angel? Yeah, that's one big angel. You know? I think it's crazy that like there's no gravity in space. So it's like they can't even move, like almost. Like, it's a trippy thought. What you think about that? Let me know in the comments down below.
Could race be a result of a particular gene from the people that ruled over a region of us on the planet? And here's what I found out. Scientists, geneticists discovered that there's a 2% variance in genes between races. In other words, what makes me a person that's dark-skinned with more melanin in my skin than you who's more fair-skinned with slightly less melanin in your skin is not because my ancestors were in the Sahara Desert working in the desert underneath the hot sun all day. And that's what they teach you in school. The reason why my skin is this way is because I'm genetically branded, and so are you. You're genetically branded, and so are the indigenous peoples of all the other continents on the planet. We're genetically branded by why? The person who ruled over us gave us a brand, just like they brand a cow and say, oh, that's Farmer Jim's cow. Don't touch them. We got you see the brand right there? Well, when these people spread out around the planet to rule over different regions of the planet, they genetically branded the people they ruled over to resemble them. They said that a 2% variance would take multi-millions of years to happen in natural evolution, and yet it only happened in 200,000 years. It tells us something interesting, that this is an artificial mutation that was done on purpose to create a specific group or specific races or groups of people that resembled, let us make man in our image, if you know what I mean.
When they slowly
started
to feed us artificial intelligence.
They did it for me and a few other people.
Other people too. Other people, yes. Because that sparked that whole thing where the headlines were saying, Whitney is dying.
No, Whitney was dead.
And Houston says something in those headlines brought her to a turning point. Other people looking at her forced her to look at herself.
How scared did you get?
Speculation out there about music artists being sacrificed because they're worth more dead than alive. And one of those artists is Whitney Houston herself, who generated millions upon millions of dollars after she died. What makes these speculations even more sinister is that Whitney's longtime mentor, Clive Davis, famously continued with his Grammy party while Whitney's dead body was still in the building. Also, shortly before she died, Whitney crashed her protege Brandy's interview with Clive and passed her a mysterious note, which many fans suspected was either a cry for help or a warning to Brandy to stay away from Clive. And Brandy actually later admitted that for a long time, she blamed multiple people for Whitney's death. But that's not all. An investigator claimed that Whitney had defense wounds on her body, and yet somehow this was brushed under the rug.
Contrary to the coroner's conclusion that her death was accidental, Hubel claims that Houston's body shows classic defense wounds consistent with someone fighting for her life.
So does this mean Clive Davis is one of those Hollywood elites who allegedly have the power to decide the fate of artists? Did he really sacrifice Whitney? Let's break it down.
Exactly what happened inside the iconic Beverly Hilton remains a mystery. Paramedics raced to the 4th floor and found a lifeless Whitney Houston inside her hotel room bathtub.
It's been 11 years since we lost Whitney Houston, and despite all the time that's passed, Whitney's devoted fans still hold hope that the truth surrounding her death will eventually come out. And it's not just fans who have cast doubt on the official story of Whitney's death, but also her friends and colleagues, including Brandy Norwood. Countless conspiracy theories have emerged over the years about Whitney's final days, with the most popular one implicating her mentor, Clive Davis. To give you some context, Whitney died on February 11th, 2012, the same day she was set to perform at Clive Davis's pre-Grammys party at the Beverly Hilton Hotel in Beverly Hills. Sadly, just a few hours before the scheduled event, Whitney's assistant discovered her unresponsive in the hotel room bathtub. The assistant first called Whitney's bodyguard, and then the paramedics arrived at the hotel around 3:30 p.m. But despite their best efforts, it was already too late, and at 3:55 p.m., Whitney officially, the exact cause of Whitney's death was uncertain, but authorities stated that there were no clear indications of criminal intent. After conducting an autopsy and toxicology tests, the LA County Coroner's Office determined that Whitney's death resulted from a combination of drowning, heart disease, and the presence of cocaine in her system. But the bizarre thing is that the autopsy report mentioned external trauma on Whitney's body, and yet the coroner concluded that no evidence of foul play was found. Meanwhile, Whitney's fans grew increasingly suspicious about the entire situation, and their concerns grew even larger after they learned that Whitney's mentor, Clive Davis, continued with his pre-Grammy party at the Beverly Hilton after he learned of Whitney's passing. So while Whitney's lifeless body was a few floors above them, Clive and other celebrities continued dancing and partying in the banquet.
Yeah, that is kind of creepy, partying while her body is lifeless upstairs and she's supposed to perform. It's not a good look. Creepy vibes.
Hey, thanks for joining me. Hope you're doing well. Saturn is the so-called sixth planet in our solar system. This number 6 is incredibly significant when we look at the six-sided hexagon NASA shows us at Saturn's North Pole. This hexagon is in fact soft disclosure. You see, Saturn is not what we've been told. Saturn, like all of the other revolving luminaries, is a point of frequency expression, a sonoluminescent light above our flat plane that represents a larger concept than just a light. It's a light with principles that are embodied by the six-sided hexagon. The number 6 is not only the hexagon, but also the cube, having 6 sides. Together, these make up the hexagram, the prefix hex having to do with spellcasting, and the number 6 being the number of the material. Thus begins our description of how Saturn is being currently used, but more importantly, how it functions as a sort of computer for this material world. The figure of Father Time is a derivative of Saturn, or Cronus, the Roman god of time. the Gnostic figurehead of the Demiurge, the being who took the essence of Sophia the Black Sun and bound it by space and time, is Saturn. This word we hear, Satan, is simply a later version of the word Saturn. So the common Christian assertion that it's Satan's world simply means that we are ruled by Father Time, all of us, within the cube. But little do most Christians know that Yahweh is the Hebrew personification of Saturn. In essence, the three monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all promote this Saturnian energy. The constructs of control all around us are ruled by Saturn: government, media, education, and so on. Saturn is the planet of rules and limitation, and this makes sense since astrologically, Saturn is known as the planet of karma, but equally as the planet of death and destruction. From this perspective, Saturn doesn't make things easy. Energetically, Saturn commands us with discipline to get to work and to do so by carrying the principle of responsibility. Being Father Time, Saturn is at worst a dictator, but at best a wise teacher. Time is the ultimate form of slavery, but it is also a great teacher by slowing down manifestation. The elite worship Saturn as their Time Lord because Saturn restrains, and what the controllers of this world are looking for is free energy, our free electromagnetic energy, which is able to be easily siphoned when we have restrained conditions. Let's get back to the North Pole's cube. This grid pattern of the cube is nothing to ignore. It represents the binary, robot-like consciousness of Saturn. Everything is about rigidity and discipline. Old Father Time, after all, demands he be paid. This cube is deeper than just a shape. We are currently in a fractal reality construct that is essentially recreating itself in itself infinitely. This Earth construct holds Saturn as the orchestrator of this matrix, the computer, if you will. Let's briefly go back to what I've explained on the Black Sun. The Black Sun is the womb of creation on this flat plane. Sophia from the Gnostic tale. If Saturn is like the computer, then the Black Sun is like the cloud that's funneling the data throughout, just like how Sophia is entangled within the Demiurge. Although we're expressions of Sophia, we're inside the cube, inside of Saturn's Yahweh fractal supercomputer. The cube, and especially the black cube, are seen scattered throughout the world, paying homage to this fact.
Yeah, that's a lot to digest. And one thing's for certain, nobody beats Father Time.
This one truth is gonna put the nail in the coffin for anyone who thinks they didn't remove God's name from the scriptures. Every time you see the word Lord in your scriptures, it originally said his name in Hebrew, which is Yahuwah. Now if you don't believe me, test me. Go into the Blue Letter Bible, click on Lord, and you will see his name there. That's the same name that I just showed you. Now there's this Bible verse, Acts 10:43. To this one all the Nabaim, prophets, bear witness that through his name, everyone believing in him does receive forgiveness of sins. Now check this out. If you go into hundreds of the names in the Bible, and you go into the Hebrew concordance and you check the original Hebrew for that name, they all say Yah or Yahoo in them. Look at this, there's hundreds of them. You can screenshot this and you can go look these up yourself. I'll give you an example. Isaiah's actual name in Hebrew is Yeshayahu, which translated means salvation is from Yahuwah. How about Matthew's true name in Hebrew? Matithyahu. And when you translate that name, it means gift of Yahuwah. All these names have meanings. Don't believe me? Go check me. Go fact check this stuff for yourself. I hope this one truth blessed you guys. If you want more like this, don't forget to like and follow. I'll see you in the next one.
Let me show you what Metatron's cube is all about and how it has manifested in the world. Metatron's cube is the prince of the power of the air. It is what locks us into our duality within the human host body. And that's why Jesus came into this system, to reconcile the two opposing energies. The two became one. One thief mocked Jesus, the other thief repented. And when he repented, he got a new spirit and the two became one. And that's what Jesus does for us. He unlocks the cube. Similar to what we discussed earlier in the video, Kabbalists believe that there is a divine spark from God within every person of creation. The Kabbalist believes that the Messiah himself also fell into the abyss and that he too is exiled and will be released from the pit when a critical mass or a spark will be a calling for him to come forth into the earth. Now you know what CERN is all about. They are trying to open up the pit, and now you know what that image of that Illuminati ceremonial mass that appeared in the image of CERN provided by CERN themselves was all about. It is them trying to open up this pit and bring forth the Messiah at the right time. And their Messiah is none other than the fallen angel Metatron, and through rabbinic writings is identified as Yeshua, not our Yeshua, Jesus Christ, their false Yeshua, whose primary role is to act as the mediator and carry their prayers to Jehovah, which is the supreme God, El. But because they have not believed in Jesus Christ, their El, their Jehovah is Lucifer. And that's why Lucifer, who is Satan, who is the deceiver of the whole world, masquerades like an angel of light. He has deceived the whole world, and these people are the most deceived. Isn't it interesting how they have Shiva outside the building of CERN, and Shiva just happens to stand for the supreme God? You cannot make this stuff up. And now we know what visual evidence to look for. We see Metatron's cube symbology, otherwise known as Saturn's cube, manifesting in plain sight all around the world. You see Metatron's cube symbology in Amazon, Gateway Computers, Nintendo Cube game. It's in movies like Hellraiser, the Rubik's Cube, Boston Logan National Airport, Australia, Denmark, Manhattan, Santa Ana. It's the symbology for the religion of Islam. It's in D-Wave Computer, which is another whole video in itself. But let's just listen to the founder of D-Wave Computer talk about it for a little bit.
But science has reached the point now where we can build machines that exploit those other worlds. And quantum computers are perhaps the most exciting of all of these that we have within, or almost within, our grasp right now. So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it is an awe-inspiring thing, at least for me. It feels like an altar to an alien god. They really are impressive machines.
An altar to an alien god. There it is, guys. The founder of D-Wave Computing telling you where he got this technology. They're accessing another dimension, other spiritual or fallen angels from a different dimension. That reminds me of Revelation 13:15. And the second beast was able to give breath to the image of the first beast so that the image could speak and cause all who refuse to worship it be killed. This is artificial intelligence, guys. This is D-Wave Computing. And here's an image of...
Yeah, that was a lot to break down. Every time you were saying Metatron, I was thinking about the Transformers. I was confused. But yeah, that Back to the Future breakdown. I feel like I went into one rabbit hole, out into another, back into the one I was already in. All about the black cube of Saturn. Let me know what you think about it in the comments down below.
perfect hexagram at its north pole. What very few people know is that this hexagram has been known about by ancient people for as long as history has been recorded. People who did not have telescopes or the technology to view anything outside of the Earth's atmosphere besides the stars. That is quite the paradox. That's what's been on my mind lately about this subject. It is, number one, absolutely impossible for these people to have viewed Saturn, especially North Pole. Saturn being associated with the black cube, which has direct connection to the hexagon shape, which is a 2D format of the cube, proves to us without a doubt that these people over the centuries from all over the world understood that there was this anomaly at the peak of Saturn. This has led Saturn to be a leading role in astrology and mythology throughout the ages, and even to this day is part of our pop culture. So when you go down the rabbit hole of the Saturn mythology, you get into this Gnosticism, where Saturn is considered a great teacher, but through suffering specifically. It's been associated with the bringer of light, Lucifer, the primordial star, or the original black star is what it was called. It's also been called the black cube. Of course, the cube representing that 2D format of it, the hexagon at the top. And the name Saturn actually derives from Satan, which paints an ugly picture. But if you think about Satan as being a title, the accuser, things start to add up as to Saturn's role in relation to Jupiter, which is its opposite. The people who understood that there was a hexagon at the North Pole of Saturn must have been either incredibly sophisticated technologically, which we're told is not so, or were able to somehow, with some extrasensory perception, understand the makeup of Saturn. So if Saturn is here to teach us through suffering, I suppose it's not necessarily an evil force, but there is a price to be paid. The mythology that ties to Gnosticism seems to point in the direction of a sort of demiurge, or in Latin, the demiurgos, which is basically a deity decided to create a universe of its own, therefore creating a flawed reality. Like if you were to create a video game and you get one of the zeros or ones wrong within the coding, the entire game will be flawed. And this is what seems to be, in a way, responsible for our messy physical reality. If this is so, is this something that is objectively real outside of us, or is it something that we project, or could it be a combination of both? Could it be that our reality is indeed a form of a syntax error that is somehow projected by Saturn as a being itself? And if so, does that mean that despite living within this flawed reality, we are still endowed with the divine spark? We seem to have God consciousness within animal bodies. So there seems to be a rift between the animal body and the God consciousness. Going back to the video game metaphor, even though the video game would be flawed, there is still the spark of the original author's purpose within the characters of the game, limited to the five senses, the five physical senses that we perceive reality through, of which we know is very thin compared to the actual spectrum of reality. Could it be that what the Bible described as original sin, synonymous with this idea of living within a flawed reality? But how does that make us living in a form of a school? And if we are indeed part of this flawed reality, that means that anything that is not in alignment with divine source should be wiped clean and start over, maybe from scratch. But however, this hasn't happened as we still live in this reality. How can it be so that if we live in a flawed, messy physical reality that doesn't actually represent true existence, how is it that we have been saved from being wiped clean from this hard drive? And that is where Christ seems to step into the picture. Now, this is quite a bit to unbox, and I realize that, but the evidence is absolutely staggering, whether it be mythological, scientific, or numerical. When you connect the dots, it seems as if there is something very strange and very otherworldly and divine happening. Does that beg the question, now that we have been saved, are we now responsible for transforming our reality into heaven? paradise. What can mathematics and astrology and religion and science tie together with this particular shape? This is Metatron's cube. As you can see, it is a hexagram, just like we have at the North Pole of Saturn. You can see that it can be viewed as a cube at the correct angle. That's why it's called Metatron's cube, a two-dimensional form of a cube. Thus, Saturn, throughout the ages, being called the black cube. So let's start off by talking about Saturn itself. We know that Saturn is in position 6, in according to the source of our solar system being the sun, and Earth is in position of 3. We just recently rid ourselves of Pluto, which comes in at 9. It also has been discovered that Pluto actually does have a magnetic field despite its size. Technically making it a planet, but I mean, how many times do we want to go back and forth with that? But that 3, 6, and 9, those numbers are interesting. Anyone who is a fan of Nikola Tesla, the Holy Trinity, or sacred geometry understands that divinity seems to have ties with those 3 numbers in a very deep way. The connection between Saturn and the hexagonal black cube was not taken seriously by our modern age until 1981, when a scientist...
Yeah, it's crazy. It makes you wonder, what if this was a simulation?
To understand why Saturn is labeled the Sol Niger, that is the black sun, we must first comprehend Saturn as the sun. Not only is Saturn the sun, Saturn is also deity, planet, and star. We must fully welcome and accept this quaternary paradox of Saturn, or else brace the mind for confusion and madness. Thus, to descend to particulars, Saturn or Cronus is declared to be the sun by Macrobius and Nonnus. Bel, Kronos, Elohim and other designations are names of Saturn. Bel in the reasoning of the sacred mysteries was both Saturn and Sol. Bel is the Syrian Kronos, the name being derived from Karan, to shine. Corona, coronate, coronal, coronium, chromosphere, crown all derive from the word Kronos and are references to the solar, light or sun rays. Keb is Saturn. Kronos was mourned as the winter sun. Keb is Saturn Moloch Kronos. Bel is called, by a certain doctrine of the rite, or the priests, both Saturn and Sol, sun. He dies or sleeps in winter, in spring he renews his vigor, like Horus, Apollo, Hebol. Helios, the sun, whom they call by the appellation Dionysus, is the winter sun, Dionysus Saturn. The sun, Bel, Ammon, Keb, Seb, is both Saturn, Kronos, Typhon and Sol. Kronos is the spirit in the sun, Venus is the feminine spiritus in Luna, moon. Plutarch says all things are born from Kronos and Venus. Lua or Luna, a Roman goddess and one of the consorts of Saturn. She is also known as Lua Mater as well as Lua Saturni, Saturn's Lua. Nonetheless, our English word for the moon, Luna, derives from her name. In almost all mythology the sun and moon are always consorts. The Elohim were the priests of Saturn. Eloi is the Hebrew god, El Saturnus. The Phoenician El, Kronos. Jacob is Keb, Saturn. Kebir means fire, Kebir equals the sun. They all, Kronos, Seb, as are El, Bel, Saturn, and Keb, go down to Hades, hell. Likewise, Jesus Christ, being a metaphor for the sun, also descends into Hades. The harrowing of hell is referred to in the Apostles' Creed and the Athanasian Creed, which states that Jesus Christ descended into hell. Christ having descended to the underworld is alluded to in the New Testament only in 1 Peter 3:19 through 20, which speaks of Jesus preaching to the imprisoned spirits. Kronos is the father of Typhon and Nephthys. Consequently, he went to Hades. Kronos is a name of Keb. Sapos, as one of the names of Dionysus, who is the Dionysus Saturn in Hades. The term black sun represents the nocturnal sun of the ancients, identified with Saturn, or Kronos, and worshipped as the malevolent aspect of the dying god, like the lion-headed god of Mithraism. The sun as a serpent would sink beneath the horizon and become a fish. Dag means fish and On means sun. Dagon is therefore the nighttime serpent sun, otherwise known as the Black Sun in various esoteric traditions. The Black Sun is the symbol of the underworld. In classical representations of the zodiac, Saturn is the Sol Niger or Black Sun and corresponds to the winter solstice, a period of darkness and death. Saturn, after which Saturnalia was named, represented the harvest and was lord of death to the Romans. He was the dark side of the summer sun. In Chaldea, a region of southern Mesopotamia settled around 1000 BC, astrologers referred to Saturn as the son of night or the black sun of winter, who journeyed into the underworld so that spring might come again. Babylonians considered it the lord of death, the ghost of the dead sun and oldest spirit in the universe. The death of Osiris is traditionally represented as a black sun, a symbol showing the loss of light. Enki has many names: Atu, Resheph, Nergal, Pur, Nandar, Osiris, Horus, Jesus, Satan, Devil, Lucifer, Jul, Ra, Pater, the Black Sun, and many more. Alchemically, Abraham means heart of the Black Sun. Abraham, Ab means heart, Ra means sun and Ham means black, or the heart of the Black Sun. In alchemy, the image of the sun is split into the daytime orb, golden and life-giving, and the black sun, the raw material not yet transformed by the master and the symbol of his nocturnal journey through the underworld. Shamash, the sun god, does visit the underworld and becomes the black sun, which later medieval grimoire traditions called Asiel. In many ancient sources Saturn is called sun. Diodorus of Sicily reported that the Chaldeans called Kronos, Saturn, by the name Helios, or the sun. Hyginus also wrote that Saturn was called Sol. In Babylonian astrological texts the word Shamash, sun, was used to designate Saturn. Question: does the Sol Niger allude to the negative, unjust aspect of consciousness? Dr. von Franz: yes, the Sol Niger would be the dark shadowy aspect of consciousness. Thus the sun god in mythology often has a hidden destructive aspect. The negative aspect of the sun is especially realized in hot countries where the burning midday sun destroys all the plants. Thus the Sol Niger Saturn is the shadow of the sun without justice, which is death for the living. Black sun is a term with multiple meanings. It represents the eclipse of the day, but is also a symbol of esoteric or occult significance used in various belief systems. The split complex, Hillman continues, is just dead in the midst of brightness, which is its own eclipse, as a negative Sol Niger. The Sol Niger is the alchemical black sun, referring to a subterranean or unconscious sun that rises from out the earth and is associated with a consciousness within the darkness of the lunar feminine, as opposed to a solar, masculine consciousness. In the form of a dove, she, Sophia, descended into the water and begot Saturn, who is identical with Yahweh. Saturn, as we have already mentioned, is the other sun, the Sol Niger of alchemy. Jung's exploration was influenced by the 17th century alchemist Milius, who refers to the ancient philosophers as the source of our knowledge about Sol Niger.
Now that was a lot to unpack. As you see, I had the footnotes under each one, so you can go back and reach for yourselves and do your own digging. You know what I mean?
Now what you're about to see is Alexei Navalny's 70-year-old mother, who is standing outside the notorious polar wolf colony where he breathed his last breaths.
Behind me is the IK3 polar wolf colony where my son Alexei Navalny died on February 16th. I haven't been able to see him for 5 days. They won't give me his body. They don't even tell me where he is. I'm addressing you, Vladimir Putin. The solution to the issue depends only on you. Let me finally see my son. I demand that Alexei's body be immediately handed over so that I can bury him humanely.
Hey yo, somebody tell that man, let that lady see her son. It's 5 days, yo. Every mother deserves that.
Ваш честь, я жду, я вам направлю номер своего лицевого счета, чтобы вы с вашей огромной зарплаты федерального судьи подогревали мой лицевой счет, потому что деньги у меня заканчиваются. А благодаря вашим решениям они закончатся еще быстрее. Так что присылайте. Артем Александрович, вы тоже там скидываете всей зоны.
And that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed tonight's rabbit hole. And if you haven't already, please take a second just to smash that like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, just to make sure the algorithm know what's up. So what we gonna do, y'all? That's right. Run these numbers up. Thanks again. Until next time.